Tonight, waiting for a decision, the Blueberry River First Nations court case wraps up. Habitat Plan, new meat measures to protect caribou in Northeast BC. And rural healthcare, BC's opposition calls for more support for pregnant mothers. Good evening and thank you for joining us. We begin tonight with the Blueberry River First Nations hearing wrapping up in federal court. The Abscessid family and elders group initiated the suit concerning the governance of the nation and what they say is a lack of transparency. The court deciding to render its decision to later date. Earlier this week, written submissions read in court heard Councillor Shelley Gauthier say she did not inform the Abscessid family that she represents about the investigation into the removal of Chief Jody Desjardins. Gauthier and Council also being accused of not following proper bylaws. The Abscessid family would like Gauthier held accountable for her action, but they didn't say what that looks like. The judge addressing the elders saying she knows they have been waiting for a while for this case to be heard. She promised a decision would be rendered in a timely fashion. Ben Council says they will be issuing a statement on the case once a decision is delivered. Another suit filed in court also involves the claim of a faulty investigation against Desjardins and her removal as chief. The Fort Nelson First Nation and the BC government are implementing new protection measures for boreal caribou in the Northeast. The province says these new measures will have for goal to help reach the population recovery target. They say 6 new wildlife habitat areas will be established. These areas will give boreal caribou healthy and a safe environment of life. 1.4 million hectares of land will be allocated for caribou protection. These areas won't allow new oil and gas projects, but the existing work is allowed to continue. A report by the province shows the caribou population is decreasing rapidly over the past 27 years. Police in Fort St. John are asking the public's help in finding a potential witness to an aggravated assault. On November 6th of last year, Montees received a report of an aggravated assault and robbery on 89th Avenue. Investigators allege that during the robbery, the victim's truck was stolen. The witness is being described having stubby facial hair with a slender facial structure. He was wearing a blue toque and blue coat. Police say details of the incident are limited. Anyone with any information on this case is being asked to contact the Fort St. John RCMP. And Mounties in the Energetic City are looking for a missing man. Justin Radcliffe was last seen in the Fort St. John area back in February. His family and police have reason to be concerned for his well-being. The 46-year-old is described as a Caucasian male. He stands 5 feet 5 inches tall and weighs 170 pounds. Radcliffe has brown hair with a receding hairline and a salt and pepper beard. He has a tattoo on the left side of his neck. Radcliffe has ties to Kelowna and Falkland, BC. If you have any information on his whereabouts, you're being asked to contact the Fort St. John RCMP. A warning now about our next story. We have more on an investigation revealing the failures by authorities to protect 3 young children from Fort St. John who suffered disturbing neglect. There are growing calls for an overhaul of our province's child system. CTV's Michelle Bernoro has the details.
It's cases like this one involving 3 children described by relatives as feral when they first came into care that reveal not just the cracks, but what critics call the complete failures in BC's child welfare system.
I've asked over and over and over again, who's going to be held responsible for what's happened to these kids?
Despite repeated calls to social services, it was only when the children's parents contacted the ministry themselves in December 2023 that the siblings were finally taken into care. Relatives who can't be identified to protect the children say the kids were nonverbal, not potty trained, and eating their own feces after being severely neglected and locked in their rooms daily. The haunting question now, could ministry mistakes lead to a similar tragedy?
Based on the additional checks and balances that have been established and the expectations, I would say no, it is much less likely that that would happen now. The caveat being it's also dependent upon staff being able to follow through.
And staffing levels remain a big concern for the representative for children and youth, who says BC is short hundreds of social workers.
There are significant vacancies around the province, and it's not that there is an effort being made to recruit people.
The Minister of Children and Family Development was not available for an interview, but said in a statement that despite global shortages, they have seen an almost 20% increase in frontline staffing in the last 2 years, but that they recognize there's more work to be done. The representative continues to believe BC's child protection system needs an overhaul and must shift its focus to prevention.
The system right now is very siloed. People are not communicating, they're not collaborating. We shouldn't be walking people to the ledge. We should be walking people to a better outcome.
But she says there have been improvements. For example, in the case of these siblings, repeated calls to authorities were not looked at as a whole, but rather in isolation.
Now, when there's more than one call within a certain period of time or multiple calls, then it's required to go up from the frontline worker to a team leader for further review.
The minister agrees significant change is needed. We are working toward a renewed model of child well-being that focuses on prevention, care, and supporting families before they find themselves in crisis. Meanwhile, the guardian of these children was supported through the representative's office as she fought to get these kids support. But she says they still face lifelong damage from severe neglect.
There's still some really hard days. Every day can still be hard.
And despite changes by the ministry, she worries other children may continue to slip through the cracks of a system she says is broken. Michelle Bernoro, CTV News, Vancouver.
The absence of a gynecologist in Dawson Creek is the latest example of a failing rural healthcare system in BC. That, according to BC Conservatives. For more than 2 months, Dawson Creek has been without an OB/GYN. While low-risk pregnancies are still supported at the Chickadee Clinic, those with complications must now travel to Fort St. John to access proper care. The MLA for Peace River South says it's a risk to the health and safety of women and families in this region. The government has known about the looming crisis and done nothing to prevent it, added Nuffield. Northern Health is actively recruiting for the vacant position, but a researcher from UBC says the need is urgent. The Conservatives are calling for immediate reinforcement for locum support programs. They're also asking for a serious strategy to retain health professionals in northern and remote communities. A cyclist in Prince George has been killed while training for the Cops for Cancer Tour de North fundraiser. Mounties say Shane Kelly was struck in a hit-and-run earlier this week and has died of his injuries. Kelly was a community rider who was training with an RCMP officer from the Prince George detachment. The pair were hit near an intersection Monday while the driver didn't stay at the scene. Both cyclists were found on the side of the road. They were rushed to the hospital with serious injuries. A suspect vehicle was found nearby and a man was taken into custody. Police have not released the status of the Monty who was hit alongside of Kelly. More than 100 people packed a Kelowna courtroom showing support for Bailey McCourt as her accused killer made his first appearance. This was the scene yesterday where supporters held signs for McCourt. She was fatally attacked just hours after her ex-husband, James Plover, was convicted in a domestic violence case and released from custody. The same day, McCourt was attacked with a hammer in a parking lot. She later died in hospital while another woman was injured. Plover appeared by video from jail, charged with second-degree murder.
Violence is certainly unacceptable, period, full stop. And part of the campaign promise was to come up with new reforms to make it more difficult for repeat offenders to get out on bail. So that effort will start in September, I believe, when we get back.
Plover remains in custody until his next court date in September. A warning, our next story contains video that may be upsetting to some viewers. There are some more questions about security at the Calgary Stampede. A manhunt is underway for the suspects accused of stabbing 3 teens on the Midway Tuesday night. Next, new video have surfaced of the violent attack. Police believe this footage of an attack on the Stampede Midway could be connected to the triple stabbing. The video is particularly blurred because the people involved appear to be minors. Police are unsure how the weapon used in the stabbing got onto the grounds. Despite global trade concerns, the BC labor market remains resilient heading into summer, according to new Stats Can data. The latest labor force survey shows BC added 5,000 jobs in June, with growth in 6 of 7 regions. It led to the unemployment rate to drop by 0.8%, down to 5.6%. So far this year, BC has gained 50,700 full-time positions, which is more than any other provinces. BC is also top in Canada for women's employments, with 28,700 jobs added this year. The White House has indicated the August 1st tariff threat likely won't apply to goods covered by the free trade agreement with the U.S. CTV's Abigail Beeman has a look at what it means for the Canadian economy.
It's just so much fun.
The treasure bin at Rainbow Minerals may be fun. The trade war's impact on the small beading and jewelry supply business is not. American products are 25% more expensive, and they've stopped shipping south because the paperwork is too much. Ash Charania says there's lots of confusion and little help, with the new 35% threat making things worse.
The small businesses are being put in the middle as a pawn. And in the game of chess, those are the pieces that are thrown to the side to get to the bigger picture.
They determine whether your goods qualify as.
The federal government does offer a guide and CUSMA compliance support phone line, though many don't seem to know about it.
The constant changing of the goalposts and the deadlines and the numbers continues, and that's quite toxic for business.
According to U.S. trade data, in 2024, only 38% of Canadian goods entered the U.S. under CUSMA, while RBC estimates 94% of Canadian exports were actually eligible. Experts say it's a matter of businesses not wanting to deal with the paperwork headache, as well as a lack of enforcement at the border.
Perhaps they thought the juice wasn't worth the squeeze because we were still getting into the United States duty and tariff free. That is no longer the case. And so it is very vital that businesses do it.
In terms of the small list of products not covered by CUSMA, they include a few agricultural goods and some textiles, and others that don't meet the rules of origin requirements.
The vast majority of Canadian exports do qualify for tariff and duty free to the United States.
Experts say getting that CUSMA certification is crucial as everyone waits to see what President Trump's final decision on tariffs may be. Abigail Beeman, CTV News, Ottawa.
It looks like many Canadians are digging in their heels when it comes to staying away from U.S. products. According to new data from Nanos Research, most Canadians view their boycotts on U.S. goods and travel as temporary. But nearly half of the respondents say they'll outlast the Trump White House. The Canadians were surveyed on issues ranging from trade war to automotive tariffs and defense spending. The ongoing elbows up boycotts have impacted U.S. tourism, alcohol, and other industries. The U.S. president is threatening to hit Canada with 35% tariffs beginning next month. The two countries have been working on a trade deal for months, but less than 2 weeks before the deadline announced by the Prime Minister, the president is not only doubling down, he's upping the threat. As CTV's Colton Prell reports, it has some wondering if a deal is even possible.
After weeks of pushing for a trade deal, Canada is staring down an even bigger threat.
Frankly, the friends have been worse than the foes in many cases. So
President Donald Trump now says he'll put in place 35% tariffs beginning August 1st. The White House says it wouldn't apply to energy tariffs or goods covered by the free trade agreement. But the president hasn't confirmed that.
we're going to see. It was sent yesterday. They called. I think it was fairly well received. It's what we need. So we'll see what happens.
While some critics say the Liberals need to follow through on the elbows up mantra, Ottawa argues it is.
Canada is the only country on earth, along with China, that has imposed so many counter tariffs. So we have had already a very strong response.
Canada didn't retaliate when Trump increased tariffs on steel and aluminum and gave up billions foregoing collection of the digital sales tax after the president ended trade talks over the issue.
Carney's keeping his mind very much on the end game, which is to secure that economic and security framework with the United States.
Since last month, Canada's target for a trade deal has shifted. July 16th quickly became July 21st, and now Canada says the new target is August 1st, before counter tariffs will be applied. But it's the day before that deadline that could make all the difference. That's when the U.S. Supreme Court is set to decide if Trump's executive order tariffs are legal.
The last possible hope for Canada. We can't trust a deal with the president. Our only hope is the courts or Congress. And if we lose the courts, well, then we know where we stand.
The court decision won't impact tariffs on Canadian steel, aluminum, autos, or copper, all of which were applied under a different measure. Colton Prale, CTV News, Ottawa.
Back here at home, it's one of the most anticipated weekends of the year in Dawson Creek. The Mile Zero Cruiser's annual Show and Shine kicks off tonight. Registration and dinner take place at the Dawson Creek Co-op. Saturday gets started with a show and shine at Bannister GM beginning at 8 in the morning. The Burnout competition takes place Saturday evening, followed by a light show and a night cruise. The weekend wraps up Sunday with a medal ceremony at 3 p.m. Stay tuned, we'll be right back with the weather.